President Biden is proposing a $1.9 trillion COVID relief package. But is that truly what Americans want or need? Our next guest, Seth Denson, wrote a column. He calls it Best COVID Relief, Government Getting Out of the Way. And in the column, Seth argues that Americans simply want the opportunity to get back to work, to find the jobs they need, and the chance to live life without a cumbersome government. Joining us now to discuss his column is healthcare analyst and author of The Cure, Seth Denson. Thank you so much for joining us, Seth. It's always great to talk to you.
Heather, Joe, good to see you guys.
So let's talk about this $1.9 trillion National Relief Act that they're talking about for COVID. In Emerald Robinson's report earlier at the top of the hour, she was saying that, Dr. Fauci is getting involved in this as well and saying that we have to pass the plan before kids can go back to school. So do you think that, amongst some other things, is the best policy to be following?
I don't know that I understand the direction of you have to send kids back to school after a bill is passed. Certainly we can talk about the fact that there are segments of our citizenry that are going to need some support, those that have lost their jobs, small businesses who are forced to close down, certain industries, right? And then we need to spend some money to make sure more people are getting vaccinated faster. But those four categories right there are really where the focus should be. But instead, we're spending more money on state bailouts that they can utilize to offset their poor management of their own budgets prior to the pandemic altogether. And so these are the areas that I question why, when we're already at nearing $30 trillion in debt, we're going to go spend another $1.9 trillion. Democrats are putting minimum wage language into this bill as well. So this is where I'm having a hard time understanding the parallel between COVID relief and minimum wage.
Right. Well, to that point, you talk about this kind of social engineering the Democrats are engaged in. How do we get people to understand concretely that getting back to work, allowing businesses to open, that's actually how you jumpstart an economy that allows states to have the revenue they need at a time when, if you actually look at a great many of these states that are struggling, the issue isn't that revenue is down. The issue is that over a decade of mismanagement has finally caught up to some of these blue states.
That's a good point, Joe. Yeah, so the CBO had already stated that based on our trajectory, this was pre-COVID, the United States would hit 200% of our GDP in deficit by the year 2060. That now has fast forwarded 10 years, and that's before another $1.9 trillion bill. What does that mean long term? That means things like inflation, fewer jobs, more costly goods. We don't need $1,400 to go out to every American citizen. Don't get me wrong, I would take the money, but the reality is it's not my money anymore. It's my great-grandchildren's money at this point. And here's what I write about in the article is that Americans want opportunity. They don't want handouts. They want to go out there and get their job back. They want to send their kids to school. They want to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. All those things that our forefathers promised. But instead, what the Democrats are pushing for is a massive nanny state and big bailout to people who have been running government that didn't know how to run government. Put the hands of the government back in the people. Let people go back to work. Let us send our kids back to school, and let us get back to making America great.
Indeed. Seth, thank you so much for joining us as always.
Thanks, Seth.
Thanks, y'all.